Hello and welcome to the 21st Century Work-Life podcast, where we talk about how the world of work and our attitudes to work are changing. This show is brought to you by Virtual Not Distant, a London-based company where we help teams and organizations transition to an office-optional approach. To have a look at what we do and the show notes to our podcast episodes, head over to virtualnotdistant.com. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hello and welcome to episode 208 of the 21st Century Work-Life podcast. Today's episode is all about staying healthy while working from home. So, an experiment.
Yeah, we're really doing it for once.
We are in Maya's home office.
Yep, and you probably think we do it like this all the time, but we don't. This is a really totally working from home episode.
So what we've got for you, we've got the what's going on section, which will probably be the tidiest bit. Then we'll go into the episode itself, into the conversation where we can have a look at Maya's house, of course, in your mind's eye. We can describe the office. We might as well, because it's a really nice place.
I should have tidied up.
Also, there's an event I went to yesterday organized by Mindset Work, and it was about mental health and remote work. But it was mainly about mental health and working from home within a remote setup. So I'll tell Maya a bit about that. We've already discussed it a bit, but not completely. And of course, hopefully it will be of interest to you. So yeah, there we go. Let's go into the what's going on section.
What's going on?
What's going on? What's going on? Did we introduce ourselves, Maya?
I don't think we did.
So if we haven't met before, my name is Pilar Orti. I'm the director of Virtual Not Distant, and
I'm Maya Middlemiss. I'm an associate with Virtual Not Distant.
Good. So if you are a regular listener, welcome. You know who we are. So let's start. We've got loads of stuff today, and we've got something really special also. We have Rebecca Corliss from our labs also contributing to this what's going on section. But let's have a look at some stuff. Shall we start with one of the most exciting ones, which I think is the one about Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker. Recently unveiled an $18 billion transportation investment bill that includes a tax credit that will give companies more flexibility in offering work from home perks to their employees. The main goal is getting more cars off the road.
I hate the expression no-brainer, but honestly, this just makes so much sense. The pollution that we have in our cities and the way that all the different attempts to redress that with low emission vehicles and congestion charges and things like that. Surely the most obvious way to get cars off the road in our cities is to have people not commuting into them in the first place. At last, somebody's recognizing this financially and incentivizing that behavior. So bring it on.
Yeah. And it's so good that governments are getting involved in the conversation.
Yes, definitely. And governments are also some of the biggest employers in the world. So maybe we'll see them leading by example on this front too, which would be excellent news.
That's true. So that news, I came across it on LinkedIn through Bensi Goldman. So I've just quoted him. So it's a lovely, we'll stick the link in, of course, in the show notes if you want to read more. Right. Let's go back to Trello. So today I'm on my phone, which is, it's better than the old iPad at home. So just go to this one, which is not as great, which is employers don't seem to be supporting tech learning as much as employees would like.
This is a shame, isn't it? This is UK research quoted in peoplemanagement.co.uk. And their finding was that people want to develop new skills in the changing workplace, but employers aren't being as quick to support that. And the reasons for this, I don't think were completely clear from the research, but Maybe employers they're not sure which direction to go in, what to invest in. Maybe they fear that employees will take that knowledge elsewhere. Maybe they think people should be bringing digital skill sets into the workplace nowadays, particularly digital natives, much as we hate to try and segment people in that way. Maybe HR departments are doing that. Don't know why, but there's clearly an expressed frustration with people who want to develop their technical skills, but they're not being supported to do so.
I think there's a lot of stuff happening. And one of them is, I think what you're saying, that someone I came across recently who said, well, they can find out how to do it. So
yes, they can Google it.
You can Google it. They can find YouTube. So there is that school of thought. I'm also thinking, what do people mean by that they're not given the training opportunities? So I think sometimes, so this was my experience during a pilot I did recently where we were trying to introduce new ways of working, and we had to introduce new tools. We made the training optional. So we said, we're going to be around these days. You pop in, we'll show you, we'll work with you. Instead of on this day, at this time, you will attend a 1-hour webinar where I will tell you how to use it.
Yeah.
And we got a very, very small take up. And I think one was time, that nobody said you are going to spend, or sometimes it has to be mandatory, because if not, something else is...
Everybody's busy. Everybody's too busy, in fact. And actually prioritizing that training, particularly when you might not be certain what benefits it's going to bring you. It might help you prioritize in future by speeding up something you already do. But I think it's those unknown unknowns of the benefits which can work on both sides, whether the recipient of the training or the person buying it.
Yeah. As Maya mentioned, the headline is 3/4 of workers want to develop new skills, but employers deny them the opportunity. It's a great headline. But it's a survey, the Upskilling Hopes and Fears. It surveyed 2004 working adults across the UK. And it showed that 73% would take the opportunity to better understand and use new technology in the workplace if they were given the option. And 54% said they were ready to learn new skills or completely retrain to improve their future employability. But 49% of workers said their employer gave them the chance to improve their digital skills outside of their normal duties. So it's everything we're saying.
Yeah, and it's looking ahead to how their roles are going to change. And it seems that the personnel are doing that, even if the people employing them aren't. And therefore, that means that some of the brightest and best will find their roles changing outside of the organisation rather than within it, which is a real shame.
It's really interesting. We'd love to hear, actually, from anyone who is experiencing this at work, or who actually is the person who should be providing this training, why it is not happening. Because I think there's, like we said, there's lots of stuff.
There is. And I think one thing that's really important to say is we talk a lot at Virtual Not Distant about team agreements and deciding how you're going to use the tools that you have. If you leave it to your team to figure this stuff out on their own, and they find a YouTube video or somebody else's workflow, how somebody else has solved this problem, then you're not going to end up with that most efficient and productive unified solution, which you could get if organizationally you really thought about how do we want to solve this problem? How do we want to use this tool and do so in a consistent way that we can then onboard new people to do it in the same way? If you get people to go and figure it out for themselves, it might be great for their resilience and their problem solving abilities, but it might not be the best in terms of how you use that tool.
Yeah. One point the article makes is that employees are fearful.
It's a time of great change, of inflection in so many industries. There's economic uncertainty as well. So people who are looking ahead to their careers and their futures they're probably going to be very receptive to opportunities to upskill. So that could be a win-win. Do it now.
Yeah. So shall we go, talking of economic uncertainty, shall we go to the WeWork?
Well, that's big news this week is that WeWork have cancelled. Oh, no, they haven't cancelled. They have postponed their IPO because they're still saying it's definitely going to happen before the end of the year, a year which is rapidly running down the clock now as we're halfway through September. This has been an interesting story throughout the year, and it's really reflected a big shift we've seen in co-working spaces moving towards this big corporatization. It's interesting because this episode is about working from home and kind of the opposite kind of office optional working to these big corporate spaces with their lovely shared facilities and their lemon scented water and pool tables or whatever else these benefits are. I don't have any of that in this home office and manage just fine. So clearly there's been a little bit of a mismatch in terms of what people want, what people are really confident that people are going to invest in longer term. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with this one and what happens with all those thousands of square foot of space which are currently under WeWork control.
Yeah, that is such an interesting thing, how they expanded so quickly. They're doing so well in our outsiders' eyes. And it's also something that I've never understood. So I am a member of the Workery, which is a co-working space, but it's in a library. It's like really do it yourself. It's wonderful.
Sounds very un-WeWorky.
And I did go to see some WeWork offices for various reasons. And for me, it was like going into, I used to work for Turner in town in London, and it was like that. And I was thinking, I always thought, why are you replicating something instead of creating something new?
Yeah, maybe some people really want that though. And if they can have that down the road instead of commuting and polluting the city or whatever, then fine. But maybe the demand was overestimated. I don't know. Maybe that's not what everybody wants.
The problem I see as well with all the co-working spaces, for example, in London, the business rates and everything, I think it's just that property is becoming so expensive that I'm not sure what the future of co-working is. No. I think maybe some new kind of social, something different, like, I don't know, people with big houses opening it up to local workers. I don't know, but I think something
that sounds more like going back to the roots of co-working, of entrepreneurs coming together and startups gathering around the kitchen table and just being a bit more flexible and hands-on.
Or big corporations with money, like like Santander that we talked about in the last episode.
Who were adding those sort of incubation services on top. I mean, the bottom line is to make office space profitable is a challenge. And that's one of the reasons that people are moving to more office optional solutions. To simply replicate that on a subscription basis maybe isn't the long-term answer.
So we'd love to hear your thoughts. virtualnotdistant.com for your long form comments. Sorry, if you hear any clucks, it's because I'm in this very nice office chair and the things to the side move and I'm just not used to it. So yes, do let us know your thoughts. We really thrive on any kind of feedback from our listeners, and especially anything we can share with other listeners. Right, where are we at on Trello? I think now is probably a good moment to bring in a different voice. So we'd like to introduce to you, for a start, the company, Our Labs, and Rebecca will be telling you about what Our Labs is in the segment, but they ran a work from home week back in the summer. We are in 2019 at the moment. And I think it was the first time they were running it. They asked us to partner with them. We weren't able to do much because it was a quiet time. But we thought, well, let's get them on the podcast to tell you, listeners, what they did. So here is Rebecca Corliss. She's the VP of Marketing at Our Labs.
Basically, what we wanted to do was challenge other organizations, especially those who may not be working remotely or working from home frequently, to work remotely for an entire week and really see what that experience was. So actually, we were really pleased that there were over 20 corporate partners who partnered with us in this initiative, really believing in it. And we had over 500 participants, which was fantastic. And really what we wanted to do was create empathy for what remote workers experience every day, because we believe that empathy is really at the core of then understanding what we need to do as a society, as a workplace, in order to really progress our strategies and techniques to make their lives better. So it was a great week. It was July 29th through August 2nd, so right in the middle of summertime in North America. And it was a very, very fun experience. I am someone who works from the office frequently, so it was also a really great experience for me to really live that life.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit more about then your context. So the company is Our Labs, and are you a hybrid organization, you were saying?
We are in hybrid organization. We are about a third. So a third works from the office, about fully. Then another third is probably 50-50. Really, they make their choice if it's an office day, if it's a work from home day. And then we have a third who are fully remote. They're scattered across the United States, even some outside of the United States. And so we live this hybrid life all the time. So it was also a really great opportunity for us to really experience the lives of our remote workers so we can both improve our own workplace and our own culture and also take our learnings and share with others.
What your organization does is completely linked to the world of remote collaboration and remote communication. So tell us a bit about what you're doing.
It's very near and dear to our heart. So the place where we like to play is in the world of meetings. And so just to paint a picture for everyone listening, if you've ever joined a team meeting remotely, you probably know the unfortunate pain that can bring from watching those who are in the room and maybe feeling the difficulties of knowing what's going on, hearing the conversation, seeing what's happening during that conversation. And so what Owl Labs does is creates a great product called the Meeting Owl, which is really the first smart 360-degree conference camera. And what it does is actually go in the center of the conference room table, and it uses audio and visual cues to actually focus on different people in the room while they're talking. And so the result for the remote folks on the call is an experience that nearly feels like being in the room with the team, which is really important because you need to get those great facial expressions and body language, all of those context cues that actually makes conversation feels more natural that unfortunately a lot of technology doesn't provide. And so we really want to make sure meetings are productive for everybody because in this day and age, you could be working from anywhere. And so that's what we do, and that's how we like to help.
Listeners, just before we carry on, Rebecca, I imagine, what's the URL of your website, just in case they want to be looking at the Meeting Owl while we are talking?
owllabs.com. So OWLLABS.com.
Let's go back then to working from home week. Is it work from home or working from home, Rebecca?
Work from home week. That's right.
Let me see if I got this correctly. The challenge was for hybrid organizations, for some people who weren't used to working from home, to work from home.
There were a great mix. I would say the far majority were hybrid. Those who normally work in the office wanting to have the experience of their remote colleagues. I would say that's the far majority. We did have a few who are mostly remote already and wanted to support in solidarity, which was great. We had a few that were nearly all office. So really the spectrum was covered. And what was really cool to see was that even those, obviously you can imagine those that joined us were quite progressive, but there were even some really cool aha moments that those organizations had when having this full experience. Because a week is a long time, especially if you're used to coming into the office most days, having that routine. There's many skills that you need to develop in order to make that successful. And then our hope was that by having this experience and really, to use the phrase, walking in your remote folks' shoes for a week, that a lot of great lessons and learnings and practices would come forward that then those organizations could employ around meetings, around being more inclusive, around how to communicate better. And that's really what was the most important part.
So let's hear some of those. You've got a great blog post, which very neatly summarizes it. But I think, so if readers want to read it, they can read it. But we've got you here. We'll put a link in the show notes. So what are some of the things that came up?
Yeah, one of my favorites was that folks did surveys at the beginning and the end of the work from home week experience. And going into it, a lot of folks, I don't know if this is a phrase that everyone knows, walked away thinking that they would feel some extreme FOMO, if you will, or fear of missing out. And I think that's a big one. Yeah. The thinking being, oh my goodness, here I am going to be at my home office or wherever you may work remotely, and fear that there might be conversations, discussions, decisions being made outside of where they are, and really fear of missing that out, which I actually think is a really, really important experience for everyone to have, because that fear of missing out, if you will, is then going to create empathy to remind people to be inclusive then. So just an obvious example, if you're an office creature like I am, well, if there's a big decision that's happening, I probably shouldn't just yell it out to the office space. I should probably think about sharing that in a digital format or a format accessible to everyone. So I thought that was a really great lesson. I also, some other things were that productivity actually increased when they worked from home. That one didn't surprise me too much, but it was great that everyone could have that experience, or most could, because it shows that working from home, especially for those who can commute to the office, can be a tool to increase your productivity. So if there's a day where you need to crunch some numbers, build a PowerPoint, write something, create some content, build some code, whatever it may be, you might use your home office or your home working space or a co-working space as an opportunity to focus more. And I think that's important for employees to know and leaders to know, because then leaders can say, oh, John's working from home today. Maybe he'll have his most productive day this week, instead of the unfortunate bias that can exist, which is, oh, John's working from home today, he must be slacking off, when it actually is likely the complete opposite. So I thought that was a great lesson too. There are a few teammates on our own team. There's a woman I like to tease because she does this so brilliantly. Her name is Sophia, who you may have talked to as one of the primary organizers of Work from Home Week this year. And she'll use remote working as her way to segment her work. So some of her best writing might come from home, and some of her more collaborative work might come from the office. And she'll use that as a choice to decide how she's going to be most effective throughout her week, throughout her month.
Nice. Okay, give me one more that you that you really liked, or that really surprised you, or that confirmed something.
Sure. I'll talk to one of my experiences, actually. So I had the pleasure of running a few meetings fully remotely, which I hadn't done in quite some time, given I'm mostly in the office. And as a hybrid team, there's usually a mix of those in the office and those remotely. And I actually found that experience incredibly challenging, more challenging than I expected, because you realize how important it is to read the room, and I'm using air quotes at this moment, read the room, wherever that room may be located, and how essential visual communication is in order to have effective communication, have effective collaboration. And so it was neat. Even when we were all on video, I still found myself missing a little bit of that. And so it shows how important video communication and getting as close as you can to an in-person experience is in order to make those types of meetings successful. So that was a cool aha moment for me to have personally. I liked that.
And did you talk to the people, or you might not have, I don't know, did you talk to the people who stayed in the office, who had some of their people going away? So maybe there were more people working from home than normal, or did you mainly focus on the experience of those working from home?
Oh, great question. We don't have that, unfortunately. I can at least talk to our own office. I would say the far, far, far majority participated, which is wonderful and exactly what we wanted at Owl Labs. But for those who are at the office, I will say it was interesting. They almost got a remote work experience while being in the office because there were very few people there. So everyone got that no matter what, which is kind of interesting. I think it shows that work location is just a place where you are. And at the end of the day, what's more important are the collaboration strategies you employ and the mindfulness you have as you're working with any distributed or hybrid team. And that, I think, is something that everyone walked away with from the experience.
Wonderful. Is there anything that you would like to say to companies or people or organizations who are thinking of introducing the opportunity to either work from home and actually just work from somewhere apart from the main office, the allocated workspace? Anything that you would like to say?
First, we hope to do this every year, and so we'll have a work from home week next year as well. If you want to check out the great conversations that happen from those having the experience, our hashtag on Twitter was hashtag WFH week, so work from home week. And I would say you could also have this experience outside of a formal challenge like this. Actually, you could have your own work from home week as a way to experiment. And so if you're thinking about supporting remote work better, I applaud you. And I would say go ahead and work from home for a week. Do it the week that works for you and have that experience. Poll your employees, learn from it. And I think that's a really great way, again, to challenge yourselves, walk in your remote folks' shoes, and then learn the strategies and communication techniques to make that type of working successful. So kudos to you, and I hope that you do.
I love talking to her.
Yeah, lovely conversation and really intriguing product, actually. Really like to see that in action one day.
Yes. So if what I found out, because for me it was the same, it was like, hey, that sounds great. So you can, if you go to their website somewhere, you can book a session.
Right.
So you can actually try the product out. So listeners, there you go. We'll stick the link. Maya will stick in the link.
Yep. It will be done. They've got a nice video on there as well. So I think it's just that idea of flipping the gaze to put the remote person at the center of the conversation rather than they're some peripheral thing off on the wall in a conference room. I really, really like that.
And you know what? I really liked something that she said, that they were a third in the office, a third fully remote, and a third people coming in and out. And I thought it's really interesting because I was listening to a podcast with Matt Mullenberg from Automatic, the distributed podcast. And he asked, I think it's one of the founders of Buffer. Oh, sorry, listeners, I'm showing my terrible memory for names. He was asking me, do you think the future, what percentage of people do you think are going to be working remotely in the future? And the guy from Buffer said 30%. That's what Rebecca was saying also for me. I mean, half and half, but fully remote, a third. It's like, okay, that started, that number.
But that's good because that reflects what we're starting to say more and more often, that it's not about evangelizing for one way of doing things. It's about people really identifying what's best for them. And now we have the technology to enable that. So, and sometimes you do have to try things out in order to see what works, which is why we wanted to support Work from Home Week. For some people, it might not be the solution. For others, it might be something that they've never thought that they could embrace. But to be able to try it out in a program like this, it limits the risk. It makes it a bit fun and playful. It connects you with other people doing the same thing. So really great idea, Work from Home Week, and some positive results generated.
And particularly important for those teams where there maybe is only one person who's remote. In the event that I will talk about later today, there was one of the speakers was talking about her experience as a manager. She was in the office and she didn't really understand what it was like for her remote worker until she had to start working away herself. So something to try outside of work from home.
You don't have to wait till next year. You can have your own Work from Home week. You could certainly have one within your organization or within your team, just, as something, use it as a management development tool, just a way to break up your routines and see, you might get unexpected productivity or happiness gains.
Yeah. Great. So shall we have one more, Maya?
Interesting article from the BBC about workplace perks.
I really liked it.
This was great fun. I mean, I sort of liked it and didn't like it. It's one of those sort of listicle articles, which as a writer sometimes really grind my gears. It can just generate this 5 workplace perks you didn't know you wanted. But there was one in there that made us all go, fraternity leave. This, in case you've not come across the comment every day in the office so far, means a policy offering new pet parents a week of working from home to help their new family members settle in. So let's have a collective about that. Other words for it have been termed pet-ternity or porternity, perhaps recognizing that you might have a new fish or rodent or something that's not furry. Really, it's another way, I think, of introducing flexibility and working from home by stealth, of saying to your team, we value your experience, the quality of life and work that you enjoy. So, bring it on, okay?
And recognizing the diversity of what people care about and saying, okay, it's not just, there might be this in your life. And we recognize that that is important to you.
Yes, I think it's lovely. And, hopefully it's not going to be trivialized to this idea of a 1-week perk. The fact that if you want to work from home surrounded by animals, if that's how you're most productive, we do have some funny screenshots of me in that position when I was bringing some new kittens into the household and they were busy destroying my home office. It certainly took more than a week to socialize them. In fact, I'd say it's still a work in progress a year later. So, but it's all part of that unique work-life experience that we should all be able to enjoy.
Great. So we'll leave you listeners to read the article, like Maya said, 5 workplace perks you didn't know you wanted. Tell us what you thought. It's an interesting article. It's a bit of fun. But okay, I'll leave you to tell us, listeners, virtualnotdistant.com. let's get to the main conversation. And to be honest, the what's going on section is becoming really long, which I really like. So I hope listeners, you do.
Well, yes, and it's all about what's going on, really, isn't it? But so what's going on for you this week, Pilar?
As I was saying earlier, I was a panelist in this event that I really, really, really enjoyed. It was organized by Minds at Work. It was about mental health and remote working. And what I really liked was that the event took place in a space in London where they only had room for 60 people. And then they had organized an online space. And what I really liked, some people maybe didn't like it as much, is that the two cohorts were kept separate. Mixing people in hybrid events can get really clunky if you don't get it 100% right. And usually it's the person remote who has the worst experience.
Yes. And it then impacts on the perceptions of remote for the people in the co-located space, and the whole thing you can bring in friction and delays that are completely unnecessary.
Yeah. So how this worked, I think, because I haven't talked to the organizers again, it was yesterday. And I was here in Spain, which is why I beamed in rather than being there, seeing as it was in London. And the panelists, the speakers, they were all online. And they were shown to the people in the co-located space. Right. So almost the other way around. Yeah. And interesting, again, to have that flipped. And then we were in Remo, which is, I have to say, it's a really, really cool tool for these kind of events. Because we've talked about Sokoko here before, which is this layout that allows you to be in different rooms with different people. Remo is similar in that way, but they are really targeting events. So what happens is you come in at the beginning of the event. So when doors open, you go into a table and you can talk to maybe 5 or 6 people. There is a limit on what table, but you choose which table to go in. You see who's there. So if you know people, which is what I did. So I saw Chris Lemp and Judy Reese and it was, hello.
So you can go and, that's really social, and brings that sort of networking element that you have in events that you can sometimes lose that in the online space. So it is a face-to-face thing.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I met Roberta, can't remember her surname. So it's people I knew online, but I've never met. For me, it's in person. I know it's not in the flesh, but for me, I see them there. They talk to me at the same time. I hear their voice. So I like that very much. So you can go as a participant where you want to. Suppose, for example, in Zoom, when you do breakout rooms, you're told where to go. Sorry. And then what I quite liked is that then when the broadcasts start, because they are broadcast, when you have a panelist, it's a broadcast. Then basically everyone just gets pulled into the auditorium.
Okay.
As in, you are there talking with your friends and they say, okay, we're going to start the broadcast. And then you stay there and the panel just turns up. So if you manage it well, you are switching from chatting to listening, interacting in the chat. So you can still do that. So between webinar and discussions.
That sounds like a really nice balance. And it's something that's not always got absolutely right in face-to-face events as well. And even things like the switchover times and the scraping of chairs and the queues for the loo and all of that can actually really disrupt that kind of program. I love the idea that things just beam straight into your screen and your attention when they're happening, and then you can discuss them in a chat, or you can carry on interacting with people who are at your table. That sounds great.
So that was great. So I just wanted to share some of the stuff because I think it's really pertinent to today's topic. And I have to say also that I met a listener.
Yay!
Hello, Carrie. And I talked to her and everything, and it just made me so happy. There was a couple of things. One is this sense that you have to find your community at work, that work is where you find your community, and therefore we need to enable but we need to enable socialization. We need to enable people to feel part of that community, to have that sense of purpose together, etc. And I think whereas that is still true in a lot of work, I think it's going back to conversations that we've been having with Chris Lemp for a while, that for me, actually, we need to look at that as a choice also.
Yes, and recognize that different people have different needs from their work. There are plenty of people who don't really get any of their social needs fulfilled at work and are perfectly fine with that. And they're the last people they would want to see as friends, not because they dislike them, but just because they have different ways of meeting those needs outside of work. So to what extent is the employer really responsible?
Also, I think the wonderful thing about remote work is that you can choose where you put those energies in. You don't have to, because of the amount of time that you spend at work or traveling and energy, that in a co-located space, you are often left with not much choice.
Yes, that's why people always find their partners at work and things like that. At least that doesn't, I shouldn't think that happens in remote. I don't know of any research on that. Listeners, if you do, please tell us. Has anyone met their life partner through remote working?
Oh, we'd love to hear. virtualnodistant.com. Yeah, so that is still, I think that's a conversation that we need to be having all the time.
Yeah.
Is because some people will always find community at work, or sometimes, and things change also. So that was a really interesting thing. I really like, so one of the speakers, I think it was, said that one of the things she likes to suggest to clients is to drop some of the formalities at work when you start to work remotely. And something I really like, because it doesn't go against, but it's a different view on on sometimes when we speak about showing your availability. She was saying, yes, I don't need to know what you're doing. I just need to know you're not available.
Yes.
And whereas maybe in the co-located space, we're more used to, I'm not coming in tomorrow because I'm going to the dentist.
Yes, I have to give you a reason why I'm not responding to you instantly or why I'm not available. And it's also just part of that continuum shift of how we have our conversations as well, where I think, email evolved from the business letter, which is very dear sir or madam, polite signatures and so on, whereas we're shifting much more to exchanging an instant message in a messaging platform where you really don't have to have all of that. You just convey the essence of the message without the formalities. And maybe that's a shift in how business conversation generally is evolving. And some people might say that's a bad thing, but I think it's about what's appropriate for that conversation in the moment. And within your team, then maybe you can just be a little bit more informal in the way you communicate, and that can help you feel connected, whatever the physical distance.
Going back to that sense of community and connection. Yeah, sometimes that's all we need.
Yes, and other times you might want to share more because it enhances that sense of connection, like when you're on your fraternity leave and you want to let the puppy out in the garden or something, maybe you want to share that or a cute picture of it. Other times, you just back in 5.
Because that's the thing. I came across a tweet once saying that the collaboration platforms and some tools were making us replicate the office and everything that was wrong with it in the remote world. But I think there's a difference between I am changing my status and telling you what I'm doing because I want to feel closer to you or because I want you to know more about my context, rather than because it's required, because I need to be justifying my time away.
Or because I want to show you how hard I'm working. Or...
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah. So I thought that's great. And it also, I have to say, it's a completely off tangent, but I have to say when that woman said about just say you're unavailable, I remember that my father, one of his people that reported to him said, yeah, once I said to him, I have to leave this afternoon because I'm going. And he said, don't, just tell me you're going to leave so I know you're okay. Yeah. And that's okay. Don't, just go. So,
yes, it's interesting. I think it's just, maybe it's a generational thing as well. I think there's a sense of maybe people are used to sharing space in their homes and things like that. And a sort of younger aspect of the workforce, maybe there's more give and take. People exchange opinions about chores or roles and things like that. Well, I can't do that because I'm doing this and so on, and feel that they need to be more accountable to each other personally. In the workspace, maybe we can reclaim some of those boundaries and a bit of autonomy over how we spend our time and what we do.
The final question we were left with was, what could we invent or change to make the world of remote work better? And I think the answer is we need to go back also. We need to look at the whole world of work.
Yes.
And see what is happening in the offices also, what is happening around the world of work, around everyone's attitude to work, and get that conversation. I think now is a good time to get it broader.
Yes, and a lot of the problems with remote that people talk about aren't really related to remote at all. They're problems of relationship, how we collaborate, how we structure the work itself. And they might become highlighted when you're not physically co-located, so you can kind of gloss over those problems or work around them. They might become exposed by moving to remote, but that isn't actually what caused the problem.
Yeah. Some of this will come up, I think, in our conversation. So yeah, I had a great time. I I recommend listeners, sometimes if you haven't done it before, it's a bit weird to go into these events online, but give it a try, because you might surprise it and enjoy it, or you might say, actually, I didn't enjoy that, but at least you know.
But that's fine, because you can just switch it off. I mean, it's not like going to a face-to-face event where you probably got to buy an expensive ticket and travel and put on a suit or whatever. It's a really low stakes way to network, and it's something that everybody can get involved in.
Good. So I thought it'd be really nice if we described, if you talk us through your office, Maya, because you've got a proper home office and you recently changed it also. So it'd be very interesting to hear what worked, and I don't know.
Well, I've reclaimed it because I used to share my home office with my other half, who also works from home in a completely unrelated industry. He does online technical support and customer support. He's recently had to start doing a lot more video calls. So basically, it just made sense for us to get a home office divorce and for him to move into what used to be our spare room. Visitors now have to sleep. Doesn't matter. Anyway, this is my space. I've been able to reclaim it and have a home office to myself for the first time in many, many years. So what have I got in terms of my setup? Well, the most recent acquisition, having got his desk out, was to put a comfy chair in because much as I spend a lot of my time sitting at my desk writing, I do spend a lot of time also consuming information, reading and researching. And I found that I wanted to create a physical boundary in doing that from the actual creating. And the physical boundary isn't great. It's not a very big room, but it does mean that I sit somewhere different. I have different sort of light coming in the windows. It doesn't work well for my laptop, which is an ancient, hot, hissy thing. You can probably hear buzzing away in the background. So I don't want that on my actual lap. That stays on the desk. Whereas anything I can do that doesn't involve that, such as reading something on my iPad or occasionally an actual book or publication, I can do sitting on my other chair. And that includes sort of social media and checking messages as well. It's helping me to use the space a bit more creatively. I also dusted off my standing desk riser, which is behind you there, which, as I have a witness in the room now, I will admit, is covered with stuff, which proves I don't really use it to put my actual laptop on nearly as often as I should. But in theory, I have a standing desk as well, which I really need to stand up at and work out. I really believe in the theory of standing desks and the fact that for your well-being, it's really important to move. And, if you love your work, if you're a writer, if you're a creative person and you just get stuck into what you're doing, it's all too easy to realize you haven't shifted your position for possibly hours at a time. So at least if you have a standing desk, even if you just put it up there for meetings or something, think of, if you look at your day and think, right, I've got that half-hour call, I'll do that standing up. So for me, I have to unplug everything to move my stuff over there. You might have a more flexible setup, but flexible is what it's all about. So
what you've done, which not everyone has the luxury because you have the space, but sometimes we don't need that. We can do things a little bit more nuanced. But I think what you've done is you've created different spaces for yourself. So I can imagine that feels then like you're not being stuck in one spot all day long, even if you have.
Yeah, I think it's one of those sort of theories of the sort of home organizing people that you create different spaces for different activities as though you were in a play group. We have the painting table over here and the colouring in zone over there and so on. And I suppose that's what it's ended up like. I've got my writing desky space where I spend most of my time. Podcasting, I'm now trying to do away from the desk because of the ever-present tendency to clunk things together and bang on your wrist on your MacBook or whatever. So I'm trying to move that away from the desk itself, and the standing desk is somewhere else and reading material is somewhere else. It's all on top of each other in a tiny spare bedroom. But for me, that zoning does help to differentiate it a bit and stops me spending, hopefully, the whole day sat looking at monitors.
And the standing desk also, of course, means, like you say, that your posture changes. So physically. And of course, we know the link between the body and the mind is huge, and it goes both ways. How you think will affect how your body is, and how your body is will affect how you think.
Definitely. And it's a way of, I suppose, enabling you to slightly multitask. Obviously, multitasking, we all know now, is a bad thing. But actually, if you can kind of pair up those tasks on different ends of your life and the wheel of life, if you can do a little bit of standing whilst you're writing, if you can do a little bit of listening to information whilst you're walking and so on, I think those are ways that you can multitask quite holistically without suffering productivity drawbacks. In fact, you can get productivity gains from it. So yeah, even if you're working in a tiny home office or a co-working cubicle or whatever, there are ways you can repurpose the space creatively. And if you've got the option to do that, then that's just one of the perks of working in an office optional way.
So I actually use different parts of the flat because
Right.
we have a 1-bedroom flat, and of course I podcast in the bedroom.
Well, that's a London thing, isn't it?
Yes.
You've got to be more creative with
Yes.
your space.
But I really like that. The reason why I podcast in the bedroom is because I have double glazing there.
Right.
So it's the quietest room, but also I can stand. I put my iPad in the, where I have my bookcase, and I put the mic there also. So that's quite nice because I know I'm going to podcast.
Switch on that energy, but
Yeah. Then what I do is I switch devices. So I'll do stuff on my laptop. I'll do stuff on my Remarkable, anything written. When I can go and write with my hand, I do that. My phone I use sometimes for social media and stuff. I dictate into it.
Yeah.
So that's my way of spatially changing how I'm working.
It just shows that there are so many different ways to do that. If you're not in a big office building where you can say, I'm going to the conference room down the hall, or I'm going to the break room now, or I'm going to go and, use the podcasting suite or whatever, you can just switch it up by, yes, I'm going to go and stand over by this bookshelf. And that can be enough to switch up the energy for you. And you can repurpose things you've got around. My second monitor in my home office, we actually found in a secondhand shop for €15. It's got a big HDMI connector hanging out the back. It's a terrible ancient thing, but it works fine when I just need to have reference material up on another screen, even though it's a horrible low-res screen. One day I'll swap it for a lovely posh Apple one, but there's absolutely no need whatsoever. There's lots you can do quite cheaply.
I'm also very lucky that I have a small space in London, but every now and then I come here to Spain to a larger space. It's really important also from, not just from a brain point of view to have that space around me all day, but also from an eyesight point of view. So I looked the other day, I was in London, and I think I wanted to look for a point in the window where I could look into the horizon so I could change how my eyes were working. I really struggled. And here, here we're on your window, we can see the sky, and also from the flat for us also. So, and of course, if you can't go away like that, but going outside or even just stopping and looking through a window and finding a spot in your flat or wherever you are where you can look through a window and look away.
It's good for your eyesight, but I think it's also very good for your emotional health as well. Just to go and focus on something a long way off when you've been preoccupied with problems on a screen inches from your face all day.
So I read I think it was a novel, was it a novel? I read somewhere, so I don't know about the scientific validity of this, listeners, that you release endorphins when you look into the horizon. We don't know. If anyone knows whether that is true or not, let us know. But from what you've just said,
I think it makes sense to me, this idea that, just definitely we've had really strangely unseasonable wet weather in Spain. You might even have seen this on the UK news, that there was quite disastrous weather, and just being without the sun for a week or so, it's really amazing the effect it has on your mood. And just to go and see those blue skies again, even if you can't look out at the window at them, then it's really important to step outside and go and find a horizon, find some deep blue somewhere, and just let that change your mood and shift the way you're feeling about things. And I think you definitely do come back to your work maybe with some clarity or some new ways of thinking about things. So use your space as creatively as you can.
So what are some of the things that you do? Do you go out and do you socialize? Do you have hobbies? I don't have any hobbies, that's why I'm asking. So what else do you do to make sure that, working from home is not gonna damage your mental health?
I think the first thing to say is that I really like working from home and I really like my own company. I'm highly introverted, so I don't have a desperate need to be around people. And I do often test that from a work point of view. I think, right, I'm going to find a new coffee shop. I'm going to actually sign up for that shiny new co-working. And then I just get straight out of the habit of it. I think I'm going to go and do this. And then I find I just work better at home surrounded by all my stuff. So that makes me sound like a total hermit, which I know I am. I mean, I do share my home with my family, so it's not like I'm completely on my own. I have 2 teenage daughters who sometimes manage to make conversation. And my other half, even though I've banished him to his own office in another part of the house, we do, occasionally pass in the kitchen and things like that during the day. And I do work with a team of people who, whichever client I'm working for, I'm either working with Pilar or I'm working with my colleagues at Blocksparks, and we message backwards and forwards all day. So I do have human contact. But in terms of actually going out, I do like living in a small town where it's really easy to pop out and go and just catch up with friends. Even though the seasons are changing, we're getting to the point where you can actually go out and do things during the day now as well. So I need to get back to my walking. That's all got sacrificed during the summer heat. So I'm looking forward to that as well. All those refreshing blue horizons are much easier to find when you go on a hike than when you're in the office.
Yeah. So Marcus Wermuth, who's been a guest and will be a guest in the next episode, actually, he posted a video about something he was struggling with when working from home. He was talking about feeling, again, really isolated, like he'd just been, even though he had been talking, he might talk to his coworkers online and stuff like that. And actually, you can tell he does a lot of talking during the day. He's a manager, and that's one of his main responsibilities, is to be talking to his people. But he said he needed to get out. And so he found a coffee shop, and I think it was every Friday, can't remember, he goes there. And I was thinking how much my own local community helps me to not feel so detached. I resonate with everything you're saying. I'm very happy to be on my own all day. Then I do realize that I've been in my head all day, and then I have to manage that and do something about that. But I think that the reason that I don't feel at all that I've never felt lonely is that I use my neighborhood. So when I go out, I know some neighbors. There's this woman I always talk to. It's really funny.
That's nice.
I say hello to the guys in the restaurant.
And that's in London. Gosh,
yeah.
you brought a little bit of Spain over to your neighborhood.
I can't be seeing people almost every other day and not lock eyes with them and smile. For me, it's so important. And then I do go to a club for some classes and stuff. And I've actually made some friends there. And I am not a person who I am really. I'm very shy, but because I do stuff regularly and for so long, I invest a lot of time in relationships because I know that that's what works for me. And even just sometimes going to a class, saying hello, smiling, and then leaving, maybe that's enough for me to think.
It's human contact, isn't it, on your terms? And I think it's definitely easier for me now living in a small town in Spain to have found those connections and relationships. I think it's very easy to spend your whole day in London and not speak to anybody, not make eye contact with anybody, just go about your business. And that can apply equally whether you're in an office and traveling. I mean, people don't talk when they travel in London. You probably get locked up if you started making conversation on the underground or something.
Not anymore. No. I think it's changing.
I hope so.
Okay, we won't go there. So something that came up in one of the conversations I was having yesterday on our table, there was a conversation going on about whose responsibility is it to basically be healthy at work when you're remote working. As individuals, well, we should find out how best we work and to look after ourselves. How much should organizations be looking at this? And at an organizational level, from what you're saying also, is going back to that conversation we mentioned right at the beginning about finding your community at work versus, or as well as, in the local. I think maybe that's something that organizations could support people with, as in saying, okay, we can do these things to help you make connections at work. However, how about we give you 2 hours a week so that you can go and do whatever you want in your local cafe, or you can find a volunteer opportunity in your neighborhood, or you can go and spend more time with that singing club you're doing, which actually meets at 1:00 and not in the evening. I'm thinking that's a missed opportunity. I haven't heard that yet.
No, I think it's something that I'm sure would benefit organisations. They would get motivated and productive employees as a result of all those mental health benefits that we've been discussing. But they'd also get loyalty, because when you offer things like flexible working and remote working, people view that as a very powerful perk. I mean, obviously it costs the organization in terms of X hours per week, but if organizations are starting to make a shift to more results orientated workplaces, then I'm sure you're going to see output gains and productivity gains by saying to people, if you need this, go and find out where to fulfill those needs for social contact or exercise or fresh air or whatever it is that's missing in your life that work doesn't fulfill for you. We want to make sure that you're meeting that somewhere else in your life, and we actively, consciously support that. I think it's a brilliant idea.
And also finding ways of being away from your screen. I mean, we've already mentioned this when we're looking at your setup. Can you bring it up so we see how long we've been recording? Because I tried, listeners, so just so that you can imagine this, Maya's screensaver came up while we were recording, so I can't see that we're still recording, although she said, don't worry, it's fine. But okay, we're getting to the hour. So I
know that it does keep going when the screen dies. I said it's quite an elderly MacBook.
Oh, and it keeps going.
I was really hoping they were going to announce some shiny reason to upgrade last week, but instead it was all about phones. So I think I'll keep this clunky old beast going for a while. It's not as portable as I would like. I keep telling myself if I got one of the little new MacBook Airs, I'd go to cafes more or co-workings because it would be more portable, but it's not about the gear, is it?
Well, sometimes it helps. And that is another point, is that actually sometimes small changes, I mean, upgrading a laptop is not financially a small change. But I found that when I had my white MacBook, so quite heavy, I didn't really want to go to my co-working space, which was actually in King's Cross then. But as soon as I got my lighter MacBook Air, I started to not mind as much.
Yeah.
Then I started carrying it in a nice backpack where I don't feel the weight. And so it might feel like it's not a big change, but actually it could be the thing that changes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Or even just going to a device that doesn't have its battery life down to about an hour and a half now, which is, mind you, my phone's about the same.
Oh. Right. So we were talking about, well, screen time was one, but we were saying about, yes, trying to get away from screen and also spending time in the community and what can organizations do. Something that I came across in another podcast, and I think I'd come across it also, this app called FocusMate.
Yeah.
And what this is for people who are, I imagine, mainly working from home, who want to just be almost co-working online, I suppose. So really just with someone who they're not sharing a task, not part of the team, not part of the organization. And then you sign in, you are allocated, I think, a random person, which really would freak me out. You say what you're going to work on, you work during the session, and then you come back and report.
Looking at their intro video, it looks like you have your webcams on, so you can literally see that person over there's working. If you need that and it works for you, if it helps to bring in somebody else, this anonymous person you've never seen before, then why not leverage that extra push to do the thing? Because you've got to do the thing. And if that helps, then fine. You know, I think often you do need external accountability. And if you have that within your team, fantastic. But maybe you don't want to tell your manager that you really haven't even started the report that you're supposed to finish or whatever. Maybe you need somebody outside of that workspace completely to just say, look, I want you to know that I'm doing this now, and I want you to ask me at the end of this hour, have I finished it or whatever. If that helps, then it's part of that self-knowledge and self-awareness about making work for you. Check it out.
And from the point of view also of not feeling like you are all the time stuck in the same space with the same people, your teammates
might shift
online.
That energy and feel like you're in a different place.
So I posted this in the co-working channel in Virtual Team Talk. Virtual Team Talk is a community of people advocating for doing remote work well, and lots of people advocating for remote work. So if you want to join us, virtualteamtalk.com. And I found people who used it. I really didn't expect it, because for me, it was like, I'm not doing that. So Katerina Bolam-Carbonell, who has been on this show, she said, and she used it, you say what you're working on, and then you both work with video and audio on, and after 50 minutes, you report what you did. It's good enough as a solution. No chit-chat allowed. And then Maulud, who runs the Remote Forever Summit, which is online in November, listeners will put the link in the show notes, said, I've used it many times. It's quite fun to pair up with random people in so many different fields and professions.
for me, it would be a distraction. It's the last thing I'd want when I know I've got to focus on something I'm putting off doing. But from the opposite point of view, I'd be intrigued as to who this person is that I can see in my webcam. Yeah, so that probably wouldn't get the work done at all.
That's what used to happen in the co-working space that we used to use at Virtual Team Talk. If I would only go when I wanted to talk.
Yeah.
So very nice. So Katerina asked Maulud about her experience, and she said, so Katerina said, what did you experience? And Maulud said, focused time working in front of the camera, started with some chit chat and told each other what we were working on. And once the session was over, we told each other what we had accomplished. So all the small talk is around the work, which I might like, actually.
Which is good, yes. And provided you're actually quite disciplined about that, this is about the work. This is we're actually here to hold each other accountable, more like a kind of mastermind interaction. And then we do the work. And then at the end of it, we can debrief on that. And then I suppose if it goes off into a bit more, tell me more about that thing anyway, then that's nice. And that can put the social thing on. But if it sounds like it is very much about getting the work done, which is great.
And Maulud said every time it's different experience because you meet random people. That's so she really likes that. Now something very interesting, Abe, he said, it seems fascinating, although I could imagine people using it in ways that it was not at all intended for, as you now have what amounts to a captive audience. But Maulud said, surprisingly, most people don't really use it for purposes other than what's intended. So that is great to hear.
Well, there are lots of other apps for different things, aren't there? If you want to socialize and network with people, then you should go and join Virtual Team Talk, go and have your chit chat there. But I like the fact that this has one use, provided people are being respectful of that, because I assume it's completely unpoliced in any way. It's a private interaction. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine how I would feel knowing there was a stranger watching me through my webcam. That sounds to be the kind of thing that we tend to try and guard against in our information security setups generally. So would it make me focus on the work? Would it make me feel accountable? Don't know, but I think I can well see how it might work for some people.
Yeah. Good. So I think we should probably stop around now again. I have a huge file again. So listeners, it would be great to hear if you do work from home or if you've stopped working from home or if you're not going to go there for whatever reason. It would be great to hear your thoughts, and we'll share them with the rest of the listeners, of course, virtualnotdistant.com. And I think it's really important to remember that although remote work does often mean that people work from home, that it's not the only option.
Yeah, this is one specific niche, and it's important the two don't get conflated.
Yes, very, very much so. Because, of course, you also have people who work from home who are freelancers. They're not really remote workers. It's like the writers, they've always worked from home. Yeah. A lot of them, not always, and not all of them. But
and now they could hire a co-working space if they want to do writing in a busy, noisy space full of people.
Yes. So let's wrap up. Anything we need to say apart from a call to action again? Let us know, listeners.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to hear about your remote working setup, your home working setup. I've shared a little bit of mine. I might even find a picture for the show notes, but I'd have to tidy up a bit.
Okay. Well, listeners, we'll leave you with the stock outro.